Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're unpacking a scenario that I think is going to hit pretty close to home for you, especially if you run a service-based business.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely going to resonate.
Right. And specifically, if you're the person people call when the Wi-Fi goes down, if you're in tech, this one might actually trigger a bit of PTSD.
It's a very classic growing pain story, but
That's
it's just
it.
with much higher stakes this time around.
Exactly. So just picture this for a second. You are the IT wizard for a handful of small businesses. You know, you're the hero. You're the one they call when the printer jams or when the CEO forgets their password for the 10th time this month.
Right. You're the external IT department. In the industry, you'd be called a managed service provider or an MSP.
Yeah, an MSP, which is a great model. You've got that local trust, steady recurring revenue. You have the physical keys to the server room.
It's great right up until you hit the ceiling.
Exactly, until you hit the wall, because suddenly one of your best clients, maybe they're scaling up fast or they just landed a massive government contract, they come to you and say, hey, we love you, but we need military-grade cybersecurity.
And a 247 security operations center.
Right, monitoring them while they sleep.
Hmm.
And oh yeah, can you also build us a custom AI application to sort all our internal finance data?
And that is the exact moment your stomach just completely drops.
Because you can't just Google your way through building a security operations center over the weekend. So what do? Do you say no and risk losing your best client to some giant faceless corporation? Or do you try to fake it?
This is what we call the MSP dilemma. And our deep dive today is honestly fascinating because we are looking at a group that is saying you don't actually have to do either of those things.
Right. We're analyzing a launch event and a panel discussion from a company called Rhino Cybersecurity and their partners. We have transcripts featuring Dan Duran, who is their researcher and tech lead, Andrew Sampton, the CEO, and Alejandro Duran, their VP of sales.
And they are bringing forward this concept of a national IT and security ecosystem.
Which sounds like a buzzword, I know. But our mission today is to understand how small to mid-sized MSPs are actually using this to scale up and compete with the giants.
Without losing that local trust you mentioned earlier, or selling their souls to a massive conglomerate. And I think it's important to clarify right off the bat that this isn't just some software update you install.
Right.
It's a totally new business model.
Okay, so let's unpack that ecosystem model.
Yeah.
Because usually when a tech company says ecosystem, it really just means please buy more of our proprietary stuff.
Yeah, get locked into our licensing. But this is different. The mission here is to solve that specific growth ceiling. Andrew Sampton and Alejandro Duran get really specific about the pain points local IT providers face right now.
Bandwidth and depth, mostly, right?
Exactly. You literally cannot be an expert in everything. You can't be the person resetting passwords and the threat hunter tracking down hackers in the network logs.
And the machine learning engineer building an AI model?
Exactly. There aren't enough hours in the day. Plus, the salary requirements for those three entirely different roles would bankrupt a small shop.
It's the whole jack of all trades, master of none problem. But historically, the jack of all trades could at least kind of fake it for a while.
They definitely tried, and that faking it is something Dan Duran touched on. He had this really vulnerable moment in the discussion where he admitted to the imposter syndrome that completely plagues the IT industry.
Yes, that part really stood out to me. He talked about something called white labeling early in his career. Can we break that down? Because white labeling sounds harmless, like buying generic supermarket cereal. But in this context, it sounds incredibly risky.
It is massively risky in tech. White labeling is basically when you buy a software product from a vendor, let's say an antivirus or a security suite, and you slap your own local IT company logo on it.
So you sell it to the client as your proprietary tool.
Right, you take the credit. But the flip side is you're also taking all the liability. Dan admits this causes massive anxiety because deep down, you know you didn't build it.
If it breaks, you have no idea how the code works.
Exactly. If a hacker gets through, you're frantically dialing a 1-800 number for the real vendor while your client is screaming at you.
It just creates this barrier of dishonesty with the people who trust you the most. But Rhino actually had a specific catalyst for why they stopped playing that white label game and built this ecosystem instead.
Yeah, the billion-dollar client story.
Right. Tell us about that, because Andrew's anecdote was super compelling.
So Rhino had this massive client, literally a billion-dollar corporation. And Rhino had the technical skills. They were doing great cybersecurity work, but the client came to them with a new geographical requirement.
They needed people on the ground.
Right, feet on the street. They needed technicians who could physically walk into an office in Calgary or Vancouver or Winnipeg to fix a server rack. and Rhino is based in Toronto.
They physically couldn't be everywhere.
And because of that, they had to walk away from the contract. Andrew said it just gutted him to turn down that kind of revenue. But that failure was the start. He realized he didn't want to hire hundreds of employees across the country. He just needed to find the most trusted local IT guys in those cities and partner with them.
And boom, the ecosystem is born. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. If I am an MSP, I already buy licenses from Microsoft or Dell. How is this ecosystem any different from a standard vendor relationship?
That is the crucial distinction they make. In a standard vendor relationship, you are just a customer. You buy a license, and if the product fails, you submit a support ticket.
And you wait in a queue for days.
Exactly. Andrew contrasts this conglomerate mindset where the vendor might have 40,000 employees and you are literally just a ticket number with what he calls the boutique mindset.
The boutique mindset, real people talking to real people.
Exactly. It's a partnership built on what they call a tripod of services.
Okay, the tripod. Break down those three legs for us.
Sure. First, you have B-Wired, which handles the traditional IT and MSP marketing and growth side. Second is Rhino Cybersecurity. They are the specialists doing the heavy lifting on defense, like penetration testing and the Security Operations Center.
And the third leg?
The third is Atom Labs. That's their technology and AI development arm.
Atom Labs. Sounds a bit like a comic book superhero base.
It kind of acts like one for these local IT guys. It gives them superpowers they couldn't afford to build themselves.
Okay, but if I'm that local IT guy in Saskatchewan and I join this ecosystem, do I lose my company? Do I become an employee of Rhino? Because entrepreneurs don't usually want to give up control.
No, and that is the beauty of the extension concept. You keep your logo, you keep your brand, your clients are still your clients. Rhino just acts as a dotted line extension of your team.
A dotted line, I like that. So instead of white labeling and pretending I'm the cyber expert,
You bring Rhino right into the meeting with your client. Total transparency. You tell the client, hey, I handle your daily IT, but this is my partner Rhino, and they are the heavy hitters for cybersecurity.
that completely shifts the dynamic. You aren't sweating, hoping the client doesn't ask a hard question you can't answer. You just defer to your specialist.
Dan Duran made a huge point about this. Being transparent about what you cannot do actually builds more trust.
It's like going to your family doctor. If you need heart surgery, you want them to refer you to a specialist. You'd actually trust them less if they said, yeah, I can probably figure out a triple bypass.
Exactly. And this totally solves that geography problem we talked about earlier. If a Toronto MSP has a client opening a new branch in Calgary, they tap into the ecosystem. They find a vetted partner in Calgary to handle the physical setup.
No flying staff across the country, just trusted partners covering each other. Okay, so structurally it makes sense, but let's talk about the mechanics of the money.
The financial incentive.
Because normally, if I outsource a job, my margin gets completely eaten alive.
Right.
Or I have to mark up the price so much that the client walks away. But Andrew gave an example about penetration testing that really flipped that assumption.
Yeah, he introduced this concept of margin stacking. It is brilliant.
Okay, walk us through how that actually works.
So take penetration testing, or pen testing. This is where highly certified ethical hackers actively try to break into a company's network to find weaknesses. A small local IT shop cannot do this. They don't have the staff, so usually they just leave that money on the table.
Or they hire a third party to do it just to keep the client happy, but they don't make a dime on it.
Right. But in this ecosystem, the MSP sells the pen test to their client. Rhino specialists actually perform the hack. Then, Rhino generates a massive report detailing all the vulnerabilities they found.
And here is where it gets really interesting.
Rhino hands that report back to the MSP. The report essentially says, here are 50 security holes that need to be patched immediately. Well, who does the client hire to fix those holes?
The MSP?
Exactly. The MSP gets paid on the initial margin of selling the test, and then they get paid again to do the remediation work. Andrew estimated an MSP could walk away with an extra $1,000 to $2,000 in recurring revenue, plus all the project work, without ever doing the heavy cyber lifting.
And then Rhino comes back in to do the post-patching verification. It turns one single service into 3 separate revenue streams for the local guy.
You're basically selling a diagnostic tool that tells the client to buy more of your time.
That's incredibly smart business, and they are doing all of this on their own proprietary tech stack, right? Because Dan Duran was very adamant that they aren't just reselling someone else's software.
He was extremely proud of that. They built their own Security Operations Center, their SOC. They built their own Managed Detection and Response, the MDR.
Getting a little heavy on the acronyms there.
Fair enough. Think of the SOC as the physical room with all the screens monitoring threats, and the MDR is the team in software actively hunting those threats down. Because they built it themselves, if an MSP calls for support, they aren't talking to an outsourced call center reading a script.
They're talking to the engineers who actually wrote the code. That's the boutique mindset in action. Let's pivot slightly, though, because we have to talk about the shiny object in the room, Atom Labs and the AI component.
The frontier.
It really felt like the frontier. Every small business owner is hammering their IT guy right now, asking, can we use ChatGPT for this? Are we going to leak our customer data if we do?
And the local IT guy is usually terrified, saying, please don't upload our financials to a public server.
Exactly. So what did Atom Labs build to solve this?
They built an in-house AI project called Nucleo. It is a RAG system that stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation.
Okay, RE system. Break that down for us in plain English.
Sure. When you use a public AI like ChatGPT, it has read the entire open internet. It's a know-it-all, but it also hallucinates and makes things up, and anything you type into it can be used to train its future public models.
Which is a complete nightmare for corporate privacy.
Exactly. A RAG system is a closed loop. Imagine taking a secure digital binder that only contains your company's private data, your finance spreadsheets, your marketing strategies, your HR policies. You give the AI access to just that binder and tell it you can only answer questions using this specific information.
So it can't hallucinate based on some random Reddit post from 2015.
Right. And more importantly, your data never leaves the binder.
Ah.
It doesn't go back out to train OpenAI or Google. It stays fully secure.
So an MSP can walk into a local accounting firm and say, hey, I can build you a custom AI that securely reads all your tax documents without leaking them to the internet.
Which is a massive cutting-edge service that a 3-person IT shop could never, ever build from scratch.
It sounds almost too good to be true, which usually brings out the skepticism. And honestly, I was glad to see the speakers tackle this head on. There was a direct question from a listener in the source material asking, are you just trying to steal my business?
Alejandro Duran said that is the #1 objection he gets as VP of sales.
It makes sense. If I introduce my rich client to a massive cybersecurity firm, I'd be terrified the firm would just cut me out and take the whole account.
It's a very valid fear.
Mm-hmm.
But Alejandro's counter-argument is structural. He explains that the ecosystem is specifically designed to support the MSP, not replace them. Rhino honestly does not want to be the MSP.
What does that mean in practice?
It means Rhino has zero interest in dealing with a broken mouse or an unplugged printer or a forgotten password. They only want to do the high-level security and AI work. If they steal your client, they inherit all the daily help desk grunt work that they are actively trying to avoid.
Oh, I see. They stay in their highly specialized lane so you can stay in yours. You own the relationship. They own the complex back end.
Precisely. And they protect that relationship through exclusivity. Andrew was very clear that this ecosystem is not an open door for just anyone.
Right, there's a serious vetting process. You can't just fill out a web form and join.
You actually have to interview with Alejandro. They only take a selected number of partners per region.
Because if they let 5 MSPs in the same neighborhood join, they'd all just be pitching the exact same Rhino services to the same local clients. They'd cannibalize each other.
Exactly.
Right.
And they are screening for cultural fit. They only want partners who actually care about delivering that boutique, high-touch customer experience. If you are just churning and burning clients for a quick buck, they won't let you in.
The trust is the product. If they let bad actors into the ecosystem, the whole thing collapses.
He says.
So bringing it all together, we've looked at the growth ceiling and the imposter syndrome that small IT shops face. We've seen the solution, which is this tripod ecosystem of traditional IT, specialized security, and custom AI.
And we cover the financials, the margin stacking, which proves you don't have to sacrifice your profits to use a specialist.
It really is a massive paradigm shift, going from the independent jack-of-all-trades to a model of specialized collaboration.
I think it leaves us with a really provocative thought about the future of small business in general, not just in IT.
Where do you see it heading?
Well, we have always romanticized the independent expert, the lone wolf who knows how to fix everything themselves. But in a world dealing with complex AI integrations, international ransomware syndicates, and massive regulatory requirements, the era of the lone wolf might actually be over.
Because the lone wolf just gets eaten by the conglomerates.
Exactly. The new survival metric isn't what you can do yourself. It's about who you are partnered with. To survive the next decade of tech, You might have to join an ecosystem.
Moving from independence to interdependence, that is a really powerful concept for anyone trying to scale a business today to mull over.
Absolutely.
And for you listening, if you are an MSP or you work in the IT space and you want to see if you actually qualify to join this specific pack, the speakers were very clear on the next steps.
They want you to reach out directly for a meet and greet.
You can find them at rhino.io, that is Rhino spelled with a Y, or you can go directly to atomlabs.ca. They emphasized doing a personal vibe check to see if you are a cultural fit.
I would highly recommend asking them for a live demo of that Nucleo AI system. Seeing a secure RAG system in action is pretty mind-blowing.
Definitely worth the meeting just for that. Well, that wraps up today's deep dive. Thanks for unpacking this whole ecosystem model with us.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time, keep your network secure and your partnership strong. Take care.